Hello and welcome to Happy Horror Time. My name is Tim Murdoch.
And I am Matt Emmert, and there's only one way to describe our guest today. She is a horror and sci-fi icon. She has such an impressive and extensive resume in genre films that really it's hard to know where to start, but you'll definitely remember her in such classics as The Fog, Escape from New York, Creepshow, Swamp Thing, and even most recently in an episode of American Horror Stories. She's incredible, and we are so lucky to have her on this podcast. Please welcome Adrienne Barbeau.
Thank you.
That's our little applause. Hi, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. I'm keeping my eye on the news because I have friends in Houma, Louisiana. And so, it'll be a long day.
Crazy times we're living in, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Now, I know that you've had an extensive career in theater, having originated the role of Rizzo in Grease on Broadway, and I think starring in over 25 other plays and musicals. And of course, you had a very memorable role on the TV show Maude, playing B. Arthur's daughter, and then did, like a million things after and in between. But since we're a horror podcast, if it's okay with you, we'd love to just jump right into your career in the horror and sci-fi genres.
Let's do that. There might be a couple we don't want to talk about, but let's do that. And there is one that just came out that I do want to talk about. So let's do it. You go ahead.
Okay. Awesome. Well, definitely. We'd love to hear about it. But before we even ask you about some of your more iconic projects, growing up, were you a fan of horror or sci-fi films? Were there any specific films that resonated with you in those early years?
The first horror film I saw was Halloween. And the only reason I saw that was because John took me to the original screening. And if I never see another one again, I'll be a happy camper. I don't like to be scared. I don't like gore, I guess. I do see quite some of the new ones that come out because I video caption them for the blind. So, and because of my, position in the horror industry, I guess, the producers, let's use Adrianne. So I have seen some of the last couple of years, some of the ones that have come out. I couldn't even begin to tell you what they were, what their names were, because they just sort of go right over my head. But I love doing them.
Yes,
I love doing them when they're well written, and when there's a reason to do them. But I'm not a fan of the genre. I do like action adventure, and I like sci-fi, but I tend to watch Scandinavian detective series on MHZ Choice.
Wow. You'd be surprised. A lot of the people we talk to on this podcast who are in horror films are not fans of horror films,
not at all.
So it's not that different to hear that kind of answer. So one of your first forays into horror was in the 1978 TV movie, Someone's Watching Me. And
Yes.
yeah, we loved that movie. And in the movie, you play Sophie, who is an out lesbian character who's completely comfortable in her own skin. And we were feeling like that was incredibly progressive for 1978. And no one really makes a big deal of it in the movie. So our question for you is, how did you feel about playing this type of character at that time? Did you have any qualms at first, or were you just all for it?
I don't remember having any qualms, and I don't know that I was that aware of the fact. I think that was probably the first lesbian character in a TV movie. I may be wrong. Maybe there was somebody before then, but the scene was so delicately written and so well written that I don't think anybody even noted. They didn't care, or it wasn't a big deal. I've been very proud of it since then, but at the time, I don't think I didn't really give it much thought. Just that it was really nicely written.
Yeah.
I didn't think, oh my God, I'm playing a gay woman, or blah blah blah, and what are people going to say? Or it never crossed my mind.
That is great. I mean, we are two gay men who love, and it was just so, for that time, a lot of times if there was a gay character in a film, it was such a big deal and everybody was afraid of the person or something. And so you're right. It was written so just like, It wasn't even it just was nothing. And that's why we were so, like, I guess impressed with that role, especially for 1978.
Oh my gosh. I was my first time seeing it and I loved it. I was really
good.
By the way,
I'm going to tell you a little side story. I don't know. I had never met John Carpenter, the director, and he called me in. I think he had liked the character that I played on Maude, and he sort of thought, that would translate into playing Sophie on Someone's Watching Me. And he called me in, and I thought, oh gosh, this is a nice looking man. I was immediately like, oh, this is I like him. And then we started talking about the scene. And I don't know if you remember, but the scene is, basically it's Lauren Hutton talking about a bad love affair that she's just had. And I say something about, yes, I know what you mean. I've been there, or, I just haven't had a bad love affair myself. And Lauren says, who was he? And I said, she. And Lauren said, oh, okay. And then we went right on.
Yeah.
Well, as John was interviewing me for the part, we started talking about the scene, and he said something about, well, if I were going to, I just thought about how I would tell my friends, blah, blah, blah. And that's how I wrote it. And so I thought, oh, shoot, he's gay. Forget it. This isn't going to happen. Check that off and just do the work.
That's hilarious. That is such a good
Oh
story.
my God.
Yeah. But it's like, again, it was, not only did we really enjoy the film, and by the way, we hated it when your character met her demise in that film.
Yeah.
We hated it. It was shot really well, but hated it because loved your character. But yeah, just really noticed that it was so progressive for the time, and it was just a really cool TV movie at the time. And it's really interesting to hear that it may have been the first lesbian character on a TV movie.
I believe that because I don't remember anything.
It was 78, I guess. We filmed it in 78, and I think it must have aired around in 78, and I don't know.
No, it very well could have been.
Yeah. Everyone should see it.
Yes, everybody find it and watch it. Yes, good. And so moving on to your feature film debut, just this little supernatural thriller called The Fog. Usually we ask people what the audition process was like for roles like that, but I read that the role of Stevie Wayne was written with you in mind by John Carpenter.
What were you told about the role?
Yes, he didn't tell me anything in advance. He just said, I don't remember if he said, I wrote this, for you or whatever. By the time we filmed it, we were in a relationship. We got married on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. Had we filmed? I think we shot The Fog after we got married. But anyway, he just handed me the script to read. And God love him, he stayed with me. I read it and I thought, well, it's like, this isn't the China syndrome, and it isn't coming home. There's nothing socially significant about this movie, which is, I had just finished doing 6 years on Maude, and all we were doing was, abortion and gay rights and medical malpractice, and everything had and those were the kinds of films that I went to see. I had never seen a horror. And I thought, well, but I love the character, and of course I'm going to do it, And also in those days, if you were starring on a TV show, you couldn't get seen to do a movie. Producers would not hire a television actor for film because they felt like nobody's going to pay in the theater to see somebody they can see for free every Tuesday night. So John offered me my first feature film, which, turned my career around. It set my career on a different path. There was no way I was going to turn it down. Plus, I love the character. And and then once we got to Inverness, we felt I love the whole part of that part of the country. It's just north of the Golden Gate Bridge. It's about 28 miles from north of the Golden Gate Bridge from San Francisco. And it's just a gorgeous part of the country.
The movie looks gorgeous.
Yeah. And in the film, your character has such a soothing and strong radio voice. Did you model that persona off of anyone in particular, or did you just create that yourself?
No, I did. When I lived in New York, there was a DJ on, it may have been WNEW, I'm not sure, named Allison Steele. And if I remember correctly, she called herself the Night Bird. And she had a very soothing voice. And so that was sort of in my mind. And in many ways, it's I guess it showed a real growth on my part, because when I did Maude, I mean, I thought I had a terrible voice. I hated my voice because I was working with B. Arthur, whose voice was down in the basement. And I had this little squeaky voice, and I was, oh, my mother,
Quite the contrast.
So it's still it's still not a surprise, but it still interests me that this is where I have ended up using my voice for so many things. I started out as a lyric soprano.
Oh.
When I was doing Fiddler on the Roof, I was singing up there. And then gradually over the years, it came down.
Well, what a range.
I am a tenor through and through.
And I don't have a vocal range. I don't think you would want to hear me sing. But
tell us about filming on Point Reyes Lighthouse. Like, there's 300 steps. Like, how does the crew get up there?
With a lot of difficulty. And only if the winds are less than, were they 15 miles an hour or 45 knots per hour or whatever it was. It's the lighthouse is run by the National Park System, if I remember exactly the exact name. And if the winds got over a certain, velocity, they shut it down. They wouldn't let us film. So it was actually, I think it was 365 steps. And
one for every day of the year.
That's right.
Yeah. And those poor guys with the cameras had to carry that equipment all the way down and all the way back.
Jeez, that sounds like you got your exercise every day when you were shooting there then.
Yeah. And in those days, I was wearing platform boots, it wasn't
comfortable.
Wow.
Yeah.
In The Fog, most of your scenes are on your own or with your son, but there's two other scream queens in this film with you, Jamie Lee Curtis and Janet Leigh. Did you get to meet them during filming or get to know them at all while filming that movie?
Well, I knew Jamie socially because John had directed her in Halloween.
Of course, yeah.
So she used to come out. We had a place out at the beach, and she used to come out and spend the afternoon and everything. I must have met Janet on the set in Inverness, but we didn't have any scenes together. And so I never got to spend any time with her. But I know, John just thought the world of her, and she was wonderful to work with. Even though I didn't get to work with her. The same with Hal Holbrook. Hal Holbrook was in the film, and I maybe we met. I don't know if we were ever even in Northern California at the same time, because a lot of my interior scenes for The Fog were shot in LA. They were shot on a soundstage.
Oh,
so everything you saw of me in outside in Northern California, driving to the lighthouse and going down to the lighthouse, and my house with my son, Ty Mitchell, those were all in Inverness and Point Reyes. But the lighthouse, the interior lighthouse stuff was on a stage.
How about the climactic ending scene where you're literally on top of the lighthouse, battling the spirits? Was that a soundstage, or what was that scene like to film?
That was a soundstage, and it was sort of unusual to film because John came to me and said, look, we can't control the fog. We can blow it into the room, but we can't suck it out of the room. So you're going to have to do this scene backwards so that it'll start on top of the lighthouse. I have to concentrate on this now. It's been so many years. It'll start on top of the lighthouse after the Deus Ex Machina, where Hal Holbrook's character has, battled the ghost or whatever, and and the ghosts disappear from me. They disappear on top of the lighthouse. So it's got to start with them being gone. Then we film it backwards. They're coming at you, they're pursuing you, etc. And then what they do, if I understood it technically correctly, is they film it with me acting backwards, and then they reverse the negative or something. And so the only thing he said is just don't blink, or if you blink, try and blink very slowly, because when we reverse the negative, it looks really weird. I guess, I don't know. I guess your eyes are closed first and then they're open, and then I don't know.
Yikes.
I want to see that scene again.
I can't even imagine that. Wow. How difficult that you're like, I'm trying to get into character. I'm trying to fight spirits.
Don't blink.
Do not blink.
Not blink and don't, and fight the spirits.
Wow.
In a backward time frame. In other words, you've been saved first, and then they're chasing you. Do you know? You'll figure it out if you watch the movie again.
Wow. I have a different appreciation, more of an appreciation for that scene. I want to watch it and imagine acting it backward. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Was there any kind of premiere when the movie wrapped, or cast and crew?
Yes, we did. We first John screened it and was very disappointed in what he had shot, and really felt like he should get out of the business, and went back to Avco Embassy and said, I will pay we need to do more shots. It wasn't scary enough for John. And Avco Embassy fortunately said, no, we'll do it. And so he went back in and shot, I think he shot the scene at the gas station where all the products in the refrigerator are shaking and the gas, all of that. I think he shot that. He shot some more ghosts breaking through the church windows. I believe he shot a scene in Nancy Kyes is the actress, but I don't remember. Janet Leigh's assistant. What was the name of the character? There's a scene in her house, maybe, where a chair goes flying across the room. I haven't seen the movie in 4 years, so you'll have to.
No, I know what you're talking about. We just
so he shot some more stuff and then put it together, and then they had the premiere at the Arizona Biltmore, I remember, in Phoenix, because it was such a beautiful hotel. I remember being there, and then we were off and running.
Oh
wow, that's incredible. Yeah. I just need to take a second to compliment your performance in this film, because I think one thing that stood out to me is specifically the scene where you're warning your son over the radio and pleading with people to go and help him. It's so chilling and it's so effective and it's just really well done, So I just applaud you on that performance. It's just a great performance.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah,
and I think I already know the answer to this, but I mean, did you happen to see the Fog remake,
the 2005?
I did not. No, I did not. I did not. I doubt that I don't think I ever will. Let me put it this way. I'm never going to see it.
No, we totally understand. Moving on to Escape from New York. Now, I have to say, even though your character Maggie, is kind of first introduced as Brain's trophy wife, you turn out to be kind of like one of the toughest people in this film, maybe other than Kurt Russell. And back in 1981, again, to get to play such a strong female character, and I think you may be actually the only female character in the main cast, is pretty amazing. And we were just wondering, how did you feel about playing Maggie and the type of character that she was in that movie?
Well, I mean, I loved her. And again, I wasn't a big movie goer. So I don't know that I thought, oh my God, this is the first really strong woman or anything like that in a film or in an action film. What I loved about her most was her morality, which is what you see in that last scene when she's going to avenge Brain's death at any cost. It's, that and again, I mean, it was much more than a benefit. I had what do I want to say, the grace of having had John write the screenplay, or John, co-write the screenplay, and he knew me, and he knew the kind of character he wanted, and so it was just I loved her.
Three
of my favorite roles are Maggie and Stevie, and of course Billy.
And that's coming next. That's coming next.
I mean, I just want to say right now, before the interview ends, that's my favorite. The Creepshow, Billy. It's amazing.
We're just going in chronological order, but we will definitely get to that.
But I wanted to ask you about the big climactic finale on the bridge with the firearms, and like, did you have training?
Oh, I'm sure the stuntmen showed me how to use the guns. That would have been very important to me. I'm a real prop fanatic, much to the chagrin of many directors I've worked with, where, wait a minute, I have to, this has to be exactly right. And look, even the thing with the American Horror Story that I just did, where she had to, I had to loop the film into the projector and all of that. I mean, it just, for first you do this, and then and half of it's not on screen, but those things are important to me. So I'm sure that the stunt fellows showed me exactly what to do.
And where was that film on the bridge? Where was that?
St. Louis. St. Louis. We shot all of those horrendous exteriors. All of Manhattan primarily was in St. Louis, which at the time had a lot of really bombed out areas. That bridge was not in use. I can't remember what it was called, the 4th Street Bridge, maybe. It was, it had been shut down, and so that's where we were.
That's crazy. Yeah, that it's a real. I didn't know if it was another sound stage or set up, but that was an actual.
No. That was all. That was all St. Louis.
Looks great.
Yeah, and so I'm hoping you can clear something up for us, because I read something about that final shot of you and the internet can have a ton of misinformation, but that the shot of you under the car after you get run down by the Duke was filmed in your own garage with you posing under your own car and added after principal photography. Is that true?
Yes, that's true. That's true. And I can finally confirm it, because I just finally read an interview that J.J. Abrams had given. J.J. Abrams was a teenager whose dad worked maybe for Avco Embassy. For whatever reasons, he was a studio executive who took J.J., Mr. Abrams, I've never met him, who took Mr. Abrams to one of the first screenings of Escape from New York, which did not have that scene. It ended, my scene with the Duke ended with the car coming at me and me firing at him. And John asked for, the people's response. And this teenage boy raised his hand and said, well, what happened to her? I mean, what happened to her? And John, okay, we got to make that clear. So it was about 3 months after we finished principal photography, I think. I could be wrong. We went back and pulled the cars out of the garage, and I got back into the costume, and I cooked another turkey bone, because that's what I had used as a hair clip, figuring, well, they're in Manhattan and it's bombed out, where I'm not going to buy jewelry, right? And that's what I had used in the movie. And they put blood all around my head and shot that one shot.
I love that.
That is such an incredible story. And what a connection.
Yes.
J.J. Abrams, as a teenager, said that. So, and I can see that, because they show the car kind of run you down, but you don't see the aftermath. So I can see, is she okay? Is she, wow. That is a crazy connection. We love these kind of horror sci-fi connections. And another connection, this film, two of your co-stars were two other horror sci-fi greats, such as yourself, who unfortunately are no longer with us, but Harry Dean Stanton from the original Alien, who played Brain, and Donald Pleasance from obviously the Halloween movies. What were Harry and Donald like to work with? Any memorable moments with them on set?
Donald was one of the funniest actors, one of the funniest men I've ever worked with. He had that dry British wit that just makes me hysterical. And invariably, right before we would get ready to roll, Donald would say something and and John would call, okay, action. And I'd have to say, you've got to stop. I got to get myself together because this guy is just making me laugh. And my favorite Donald story was we checked into the hotel, which was downtown St. Louis, I guess. It was near the Gaslight Quarter at that time. And the fellow that checked us into the hotel said, it's not a safe neighborhood, so don't go walking around this neighborhood. Okay. So Donald wanted to go to this Chinese restaurant that he'd heard about. So he went out the front door. He called a cab and went out the front door. And the taxi cab driver drove him around to the back of the hotel where the Chinese restaurant was. And I always used to tease him about that.
Wow.
Harry Dean, I didn't get to know as well away from camera. The only thing I sort of remember is that Harry Dean liked to improvise. And John, at that time, I don't know how he is these days as a director, but at that time, John wanted the words that were on the page.
Word for
so
word.
It was sort of like, Harry Dean, that's great, but let's just stick with the dialogue.
Oh, wow. I can see that as being, especially if John being a writer and director, being like,
yes.
Let's stick to the script here. Wow.
Yes.
I love that story about Donald Pleasance being taken around the other side.
It's an expensive cab.
That cab fare must have been nuts. I hope he expensed it to the film. Okay, so I know obviously we can't go through every single horror and sci-fi film you've ever been in, but just like we were saying, we can't forget, two movies that came out right around the same time based on comic books, the original Creepshow and Swamp Thing. And in Creepshow, you play the very brash and opinionated Wilma, just call me Billy Northrop, who's lured by her husband, into being eaten by this crated beast. And so I've got to ask, for you, is it more fun to play these more kind of eccentric, somewhat villainous characters, or do you prefer the more like heroic ones like Stevie from The Fog?
Oh, I love watching Billy. I mean,
it is so funny.
I really do. She is, because she's so much fun and she's so far away from me. I don't even drink. I've never been drunk in my life. I don't know what
you're like. A great actress, because that is convincing.
But it really comes down to the words. One of my all-time favorite roles was Ruthie in Carnival. And although, I guess you'd call her a character, I guess you'd call that a character role. She was not outrageous like Billy. But I loved Stevie and I loved Maggie. So it really comes down to the words, but I did have a great time doing Billy. And I have to credit George with the creation of Billy, because up until that time, my film acting career was based on advice that John Carpenter had given me, which was do less, do less. And then I show up to do Billy and George is saying, no, you can be bigger. And I was like, oh my God. Okay, let's try it.
That's hilarious. I love that.
And then you get eaten.
And then I got eaten,
What was that? Was that like a huge puppet? Or
what? The beast. What was it?
Honestly, Tim and Matt, I'm not sure. I don't remember. And I have asked, oh God, and now I'm showing my age. I'm going blank on our special effects. He's incredibly famous. Who did the special effects for Creepshow? Savini, Tom Savini.
Oh, Savini, yes, of course.
Forgive me, Tom. It's just my brain. I've asked Tom several times. I think it was a man in a suit. I think it was. I got to ask him again. Some of it may have been animatronics, or maybe they didn't have animatronics in those days, but some of it may have I don't know, guys.
No,
Okay.
hey, I mean it's creepy and it's
Creepshow.
no, it's very creepy and I didn't know like I definitely could see it being a person
Oh,
wearing
yeah.
it, just didn't know. Yeah.
And then in 2019, you got to return to Creepshow. How did that come about?
Yes, that was great. Well, Greg Nicotero, the the director, just made me the offer, and what was really wonderful is I had only known Greg a little bit as a special effects creator, and I had not seen his directing on The Walking Dead. And so it was wonderful to work with him and realize that I was in such great hands and that I could trust him as a director. And I mean, she wasn't Billy.
Who is? She's
Yeah,
the best.
no one. Yeah.
But I was really happy to be a part of it.
No, that is so cool. And then just like Creepshow, Swamp Thing was also based on a comic book. And in that film, you play Alice Cable, the main heroine. And watching this film, it seemed like it must have been a very physical and exhausting shoot. Like there's tons of running away from cars and shooting and swimming and diving into the swamp. So what was it like filming a movie with so much action? And how many of those stunts did you have to do?
I did all of them.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I went into the water. In fact, it was the first time I ever realized that stunts could be dangerous because the stuntman came to me. There was a scene where I don't know, somebody's chasing me in a Jeep. Again, it's been a long time since I've seen it. But the stunt coordinator came to me and he said, "Now look, if you fall down, don't move. Just stay where you are and we won't run over you." And I thought, what? You mean there's a chance I could get hurt? I didn't know. The swamp was filthy. They had to put cotton balls dipped in antibiotic liquid in our ears, and they had to just wash us down with antibiotic soap afterwards. And but what really made it hard was that the studio kept pulling the budget out from under Wes, and so we were really working at a disadvantage because he just didn't have the money to make the film that he wanted to make. We showed up for work one day and the makeup trailer wasn't there because they hadn't paid the bill, and so it was long hours. It was really hot and muggy, and chiggers and ticks and gators. Mosquitoes, chiggers, ticks, gators. Snakes. I didn't mind the snakes, and I didn't realize that gators could, be that terrifying if they moved fast. But so I wasn't too worried about that. But it wasn't an easy shoot. It wasn't as fun as the others had been.
I can imagine.
Well, I mean, as a viewer, it looked like a great time, but I mean, I know that movies aren't easy to make.
It just looked like it was exhausting. It looked like it was.
We were working long hours.
Yeah, I can imagine. And just like Creepshow, you returned to the Swamp Thing TV series in 2019 also, correct?
Yes. And that was the set that they had built for that show. I do hope that, I think it's the CW that has it now, or I don't know what the politics are, but there has been talk about maybe bringing it back. They built the most incredible swamp, in a soundstage that I wish Wes had been around to see it. It was really remarkable. It was, so that was fun, that was just.
Yeah, that's awesome. Especially both in the same year, coming back to two franchises from, 30 whatever years ago is amazing. So, jumping forward a ton of time, and you mentioned this at the beginning, you were recently in the third episode of American Horror Stories called Drive-In. And first off, we both absolutely loved that episode.
Been to that Drive-In.
Yeah. And I'm just wondering, how did you get involved with that show? Did Ryan Murphy reach out to you directly? I know he loves working with tons of these big horror icons.
That was where I had to audition.
Oh.
They asked me to do, I did a self-tape, here at the house, because nobody goes into a casting director's office anymore since the pandemic. But I had to audition. I didn't audition with that scene. They had written a scene because they really keep their finger on the secrecy of the series. But it was sort of the same character, maybe saying the same words, but have you seen the episode?
Oh, yes. Would love to.
Okay.
Loved it.
Well, in the audition, she owned a video store, and she was a video game store. And she was waiting for the guy to bring the latest game or something, And so, and they said in the audition, this is not the scene that you would be doing if you were cast. But no, I auditioned for that one.
Oh,
wow. No, that's interesting because I mean, as soon as we heard that you were in that episode, we went right to episode 3 in the series. So
thank you.
Yes, it was such a draw.
What was it like to transform into a demon, and what was the makeup process like?
I had prosthetics before, so I mean, you sit there for about 4 hours while they cover your entire head in latex or whatever it is, and then they make a mold, and then it goes on from there. The only problem I had with it was, and I don't think any of them know because I had already finished the show, but when they took all of the prosthetics off, well, I've had a red blotch on my skin ever since. I mean, I guess it broke a lot of blood vessels, and I don't think they're gonna heal up. But
oh no,
we're sending you healing vibes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was it fun to be running around? It's such a crazy scene. That scene where you're basically running around killing people in the office. Was that fun to do?
Yeah. I didn't have to remember any dialogue. So, The fun part of that show for me was working with John Carroll Lynch, because we had done a series that he was starring in New Orleans, and I had gone down and done one episode and had worked with him on that. So it was really nice to see him again.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. And he's been on I think a number of American Horror Story seasons.
Yes.
And it's great on the show. I also wanted to mention the podcast that you hosted in 2019 called She Kills. And just tell our listeners out there, if you haven't checked it out, you've definitely got to take a listen, because every episode, it explored the horror genre through a female perspective and featured conversations between women that were both in front of and behind the camera. You were hosting, you had people like Dee Wallace, Jennifer Tilly, Barbara Crampton on the show, among others. It's just incredibly fascinating. And just wondering what inspired you to work on this podcast?
Well, they asked me to do it, and I thought, oh, this sounds interesting. And, women are coming up behind the camera as well as on screen in the horror genre. And so, yeah, why not?
Your voice is so soothing, just like the fog. Would you ever want to revisit the podcast, or you want to go?
Yeah, I know it was kind of a limited series, but is there a chance that it could be revisited? Maybe a new season, perhaps?
I haven't heard anything. That all came from Shudder.
Okay.
We love Shudder.
Shudder.com. Yeah. I'd love to do it again. If I did it again, I'd like to be more involved in the actual interviews. The way this one worked is they did the interviews, they put them together, and then they sent them to me with some possible dialogue for me to say and asked me to, change it however I wanted to make it more personal and ask the questions that I was interested in asking. So, but I don't know. Haven't heard.
Yeah, no, we listened to a number of episodes, and it is true. You're kind of like the narrative, as the narrative, but it would be interesting. I was thinking that too, like we'd love to hear you have a conversation with some of them, so definitely. Overall throughout your career, you've gotten the chance to play so many strong female characters in horror. And we've been lucky enough on this podcast to speak to a number of women who've played powerful, memorable characters within the genre. But I know horror hasn't always been recognized for portraying women in this way. So my question for you is, what are your thoughts on the roles available for women in horror? And has your opinion changed over the years as the genre has evolved?
Well, I think, and again, I'm not an expert on this at all, But from what I've been offered, the film I just did called Unearth with Mark Blucas, which had a limited, because of the pandemic, had a limited theatrical release, but it is available on all the major streaming channels. Was again a strong, a strong woman. She's the matriarch of a farm family. It is it's a film about the horrors of fracking. So it's a sort of a ecological horror film. But some of the others that I've seen, women certainly are not relegated any longer to being the victim, and I think that's a change, certainly from 40 years ago. What I do see in a lot of the things that I'm offered, which I turn down, is the impulse to just get as many people that you have no idea who they are, what they care about. You don't care about them, but let's get them all killed within the first 5 pages of the script, and that doesn't interest me at all. I hope that, we went through a real period of that, and I hope that maybe it's turning around and now we're seeing a little more character development before somebody gets their throat slit, so you care if they're getting their throat slit.
No, you're totally right. And I think, Tim and I are huge horror fans, but we gravitate toward the films where you actually care about the characters. The characters that you, and whether it's John Carpenter, whoever directed or wrote the films, have created that stick with us so many years later. That's what makes a film a classic, that obviously the plot, but the character, and be really able to feel for the character and have someone you identify with. So I totally agree.
Yes. Yeah. So.
Have you attended many horror conventions? Or
I obviously not in the last couple of years because of the quarantine, but I usually do maybe 4 a year, 3. There was one year when I was touring with the National Company of Pippin, and so I was out of the country, and I was just I was working all the time. One of the reasons I do them is because it gives me an opportunity to see Tom Atkins, my old buddy from long before the fog. And in fact, Tom and I are on our way to Baltimore at the end of September, I think, and to do one there. So I'll get to see Tom again. I enjoy doing them. There's a real sense. I love talking to people and meeting people and all of that, and they're very gratifying. I was just talking to Kim Myers last night, another actress whose work you may know, and we had done one before the pandemic. We had done one together, and people come up and even if they want to talk about Maud and it's not a horror, and they're telling me how my character in Maud had an impact on their life, or how the show had an impact on their life. And so it's really nice to hear that kind of thing.
I was going to ask you, what's the number one thing people approach you about? So it's probably just a variety.
Yeah. Is there
they mostly
Maud,
and it's changed over the years. There's still a huge Carnival fan base, who are still saying, is it going to come back? That sort of stopped in the last year or two, but Creepshow is my favorite film of all time. I watch The Fog once a week,
wow.
It's amazing. And then and Maud, Back to School, Cannonball Run.
I love all those films.
Yeah,
all of those films. I've been fortunate that I've been in some iconic films.
And that's really the word. That's why we were calling you a horror icon. But I'm interested in, when do you feel like you realized that you were considered an icon within horror, and do you see yourself in that manner?
I don't see myself in that manner, although the last couple of jobs I've done. Oh, and I can tell you, I can't talk about it too much, but I got to go to New Zealand last year, and I did a guest episode or a guest star on Cowboy Bebop, which maybe you guys aren't anime. Are you anime?
I'm aware.
I mean, it's science fiction.
Aware of it, not as well versed.
Okay. But what I was going to say is, I sort of became aware of that term starting to be applied to me maybe a couple of years ago. Maybe it was before the pandemic. I didn't quite understand it. And I do it's sort of embarrassing to talk about, but I've noticed that when I go on a set these days, there are people who are happy to see me there. They know who I am. And it's like, some of it is, listen, if you stay in the business as long as I have, I think that's a natural progression. But it's really nice. It's nice to have people like you, say we'd like to talk to you about your career. It's
absolutely,
of course. And just so you know, I feel like it's much more than just staying in the business. I mean, you've made an impact in this business, and that's why, I think that's why we were so excited to chat with you. I think that's why people just light up when they hear your name. I mean, this is a testament to you and the parts you've played and just, all this 40 plus years.
Yeah. And your movies legacy are so fun, and like you can watch them over and over.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I've got a couple more coming out. I don't know when, God only knows. Cowboy Bebop will be on. Mm-hmm. I actually, and this is not for your fan base, but it's, I was really pleased I did an episode of AJ and the Queen with RuPaul.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yes.
And I really like that character. I really like the character I played. And keep an eye out for Unearthed. And, some of these questions that you've asked, I have a memoir that I wrote. I wrote it in 2006. And it's all about my career primarily, and then the people I've been in relationships with and things like that. But there's some funny stories in there about some of these horror films that we didn't talk about, thank God, called There Are Worse Things I Could Do. I did an update of it for Kindle, for an ebook. I think I wrote that maybe. I just updated the 2006 with a couple of changes that have happened in my life since then. But actually a couple of the stories that I've told you about the fog and all of that are in there. But there's a couple of others that you might enjoy.
No, we would love to.
We will have that I've never talked about.
we will have to check that out. And it brings us to, we have one final question for you. And first off, I just want to again plug. So your memoir is called There Are Worse Things I Could Do?
Yes, from the song that I sang as Rizzo in Greece.
Yes, exactly. Great.
And then I also have a series of vampire novels that I wrote for my horror genre fan base.
What are those called?
Well, the series, it's the Vampires of Hollywood series. I wrote Vampires of Hollywood with a co-author, and then I wrote the sequel, Love Bites, and I wrote Make Me Dead.
I love it. These are great.
They're about a scream queen who has a film studio in Los Angeles, but she also is the head of a clan of vampires of A-list actors.
Wow.
I can relate to it.
Somebody is killing them off, Orson Welles and Mary Pickford.
Oh, wow. What?
So it's just sort of funny. And the second one, Love Bites, has been written as a screenplay and a pilot for a series. And we're in the process of getting ready to put that out there to see if anybody is interested. So,
well,
there are worse things I could do is the one that has all the stories.
well, I was going to say, number one, you've been busy.
Yeah.
Wow. And number two, we have a list of things that we have to check out. That is incredible. And really excited. The final question we ask, and it's kind of, maybe it's reserved for something from the book or maybe something you haven't, but we ask this to everyone we interview on the podcast. And we usually ask it about one film in particular, but since you've been in so many, I'm going to extend this question to all the films we chatted about today. But what is one thing that you can tell us about your experience working on any of the films we spoke about today that you've never told any other interviewer, publication, podcaster, maybe you didn't put in your book? Just one thing that you've never told in any other interview about one of these films that we talked about.
It could be minor. Like, it doesn't have to be like,
yeah,
our heads explode.
Okay. Can it be about Carnival?
Of course.
Sure.
Because we didn't really talk about Carnival, and that's really not in the horror genre. All right, let me think about something else.
Okay.
Oh, well, I don't know if I've ever really talked about this. I do mention it in the book probably, but we, John and I both fell in love with Point Reyes and Inverness so much that we wanted to buy a house there. And we made contact with a real estate agent. And then I guess we went on vacation. We left the country, we went on vacation, and we came back. And the agent called and said, I think I have the house for you. There weren't very many properties for sale up on Inverness Ridge, up in that area. She said, I think I have your house for you. And John couldn't go. I don't know if he wasn't well or whatever. So I flew up to Point Reyes and saw this house and called him and said, well, do you trust me? And this was in the days before FaceTime or anything. There was no sending videos or anything. And he said, yeah. And so we bought this house without him ever seeing it.
Wow. And
we absolutely loved it. It was just a wonderful, wonderful house. And John went up there and he wrote, I don't know what he wrote after. He probably wrote Escape up there. He wrote some of his screenplays up there. And I don't think I've ever told that story.
Wow, that is a great story.
I love it.
And and it's such a beautiful.
Unfortunately, it burned to the ground.
Now there's the twist I was not expecting.
Fire.
Oh no!
I think it was 1988. John and I had divorced, and he kept that house, and I kept I don't know, whatever, and somebody set a fire, and I think there were like 80 homes burned up on the ridge. And so anyway, but it's a beautiful part of the country.
Yes, and all because you were filming The Fog there, and then that who knows what ideas, and how different, like, you film in one location and it turns into be where you're living then for the next decade. Yes. Well, that's really a great story. Thank you for sharing with it.
Okay.
Well, well, we just want to thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts for taking the time to speak with us today. Again, like I said, I know I feel like I'm gushing, but we are such big fans. Yes. Our listeners are huge fans. And we're just really, really excited to be able to talk with you about these movies.
Thank you for taking a time on the Sunday.
Sure. Thank you.
We will definitely be in touch when we're going to release the episode. And we hope to stay in touch with you. And we're going to look forward to these new projects that you're working on. We can't wait.
Hopefully we'll see you at a convention or something.
Yes, we hope. We'll definitely. We're going to look for you at conventions. But thank you so much, Adrienne. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
Take care. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Happy Horror Time. This podcast is hosted by Matt Emmer and myself, Tim Murdoch. It's co-produced by Jacob Randall, who also hosts a great true crime podcast, Crime of Your Life.
Please check out our website, happyhorrortime.com, where you can stream all of our episodes and see all our pretty little episode images. You can also follow our social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Happy Horror Time.
We love hearing from our listeners, so if you want to contact us about one of our recent episodes, send us an email at happyhorrortime@gmail.com.
If you'd like to support this podcast, please sign up to be a patron at patreon.com/happyhorrortime. Patrons get access to our growing library of bonus episodes where we discuss older horror films, look back at popular franchises, and all kinds of other fun horror stuff.
I'm Tim Murdoch.
And I'm Matt Emmert, and we hope you have a happy horror time.